We are going to get more on the investigation into who killed this little girl. The police say it was this man. They say they know who it was, Jared Loughner. And we're trying to figure out why. It is always a difficult task to try to assign reason to an irrational act. But that is one of the things that Pima County, Arizona Sheriff Clarence Dupnick is trying to do. And the sheriff joins me now. Sheriff, thank you for waiting. I'm sure you heard that emotional interview with little Christina's father, John. And I'm sure it's just one of many encounters that you've heard with parents and with loved ones of the victims of this tragedy. I appreciate you giving us your time on what's a very, very busy day for you as well and for your investigators. I want to start with you on the indictment, on the criminal complaint that they just made public against this Jared Loughner, talking about a possible assassination attempt and the letter that was found inside the safe in his room. Can you tell us anything about that specific letter, Sheriff?
Yes, I can. It was a letter, and I'm just going to do it in generalities, wherein he indicated that he was going to kill that bleeping lady.
It's clear to you that Gabrielle Giffords was his target for whatever reason.
There's no doubt about it. We've done enough investigation in conjunction with the FBI that there's no doubt in our mind that this was an act of a single, very troubled individual.
Sheriff, why? Sheriff, I mean, I almost feel silly asking the question, you know, because, as I said, who can explain the mind of somebody like this? But was there something about Congresswoman Giffords, as far as your investigation shows, that set him off?
There are a whole lot of people in this country that are very angry at the politics of people like Gabrielle. There was a lot of vitriolic statements made night and day on radio and TV about her support of health care, about her support of some of the other things. And some of the vitriol got a lot of people agitated. But you took the words out of my mouth. You know, you're talking about irrational behavior here, and there's no way that I know of that you can rationalize irrational behavior.
Right. I want to ask you about that because that's something you've mentioned the past couple of days, and I just want to ask you whether there is anything you've uncovered in your investigation so far that suggests this suspected killer was listening to radio or watching television and in any way inspired by what he heard or saw.
Well, I know that there had been some contact with Gabrielle Giffords in the past. We have, as a matter of fact, a letter from her that was dated in 2007, where I don't know what prompted that particular letter, but she had agreed and invited him to a similar event back in 2007, so there is some history.
Right. He had, according to the criminal complaint, he had shown up at one of her Congress on the Corners events, and then there was a letter following up, I guess, in response to that, or there was some correspondence about it. But what I'm wondering is, do you have reason to believe that this particular suspected killer was taking in information or was in any way influenced by the vitriol or the rhetoric that you're referring to that, you know, has been out on the airwaves?
If your question is specific, I have to be specific and say I don't have that information yet. The investigation is in its very initial phases. But my belief, and I've been watching what's been going on in this country for the last 75 years, and I've been a police officer for over 50 years. There's no doubt in my mind that when a number of people night and day try to inflame the public, that there's going to be some consequences from doing that, and I think it's irresponsible to do that.
Is that, Sheriff, just, it sounds like you're being very honest that that's just your speculation and that's not anything that's fact-based at this point?
That's my opinion, period.
And, you know, we've had some people question whether that is something you should be sharing now because tempers are already inflamed. People are upset about what's happened. The grieving families are still mourning. The bodies have yet to be buried. And is it the time, really, to be injecting speculative opinion like that into this case by somebody like yourself, the sheriff?
Well, I think difference of opinion is what makes the world go round and round. But I think it's irresponsible for us not at some point to address this kind of behavior and try to put a stop to it. There's no doubt in my mind that there are consequences to this kind of behavior. When people, allegedly credible people who get up in front of cameras and microphones and say things that are not true and try to inflame the public, when millions of dollars are filtered into this country to buy very vitriolic ads and they don't have to be identified, the countries that they're coming from or the people who are donating them, I think it's time that we take a look at it. I think free speech is free speech, but it's not without consequences.
And with respect, Sheriff, I know that you're a Democrat and you ran for office as a Democrat, and I just want to press you on that a little, because I'm sure some of our viewers are asking themselves why you are putting a political spin on this when they may be asking why you, the sheriff, aren't just focused on the facts, on uncovering the facts.
Well, I think that it's more than just a political spin. I'm not sure that it really has anything to do with politics. You know, I grew up in a country that was totally different from the country that we have today. We didn't have this kind of nonsense going on, and it used to be that politicians from different parties could sit down, forget about their ideology, and work on the country's problems. We don't see that happening today. As a matter of fact, we see just the opposite. We see one party trying to block the attempts of another party to make this a better country. And I think that it's time that we as a country need to look into our souls and into our hearts and say, is what we're doing really in the best interest of this country, or is there something better that we can do?
And that's a fair point. You know, I'm separate and apart from what we saw in Arizona yesterday. I mean, you could make the argument that we just need to come together as a country. But I think, you know, people are looking at what happened in Tucson, and what you seem to be telling us, what the feds seem to be telling us, is we're dealing with, and I don't use this term legally, I'm not trying to say anything about how this is going to plead out in a courtroom, some sort of madmen, you know, just like we've had in the past, the assassination of Robert Kennedy, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, you know, the assassination of Martin Luther King. As you refer to a time gone by, there were madmen then, there are madmen now. And it just, you know, is it really the place of a sheriff to stir the pot on either side of the political aisle?
Well, I guess that's for the listeners to decide.
That's fair enough, sir. I appreciate that answer. Let me question you about, in particular, this third person who you talked about today at the press conference, a woman, a female hero who we didn't hear about yesterday. We'd heard about two gentlemen who had succeeded in taking down this gunman. But today you revealed that actually there was a woman who was the first one to approach the gunman. And maybe you could just walk our viewers through what we know about her and what she did.
This is one of the most heroic acts I've ever seen. I know that most of us took Psych 1A when I was a young guy. And we were introduced to fight or flight when confronted with something extremely fearful. And I wonder what each of us would do in that circumstance. I suppose most of us who looked at this decided the same thing. This lady was standing in line to have her picture taken with Gabrielle when all hell broke loose. And for whatever reason, she decided something had to be done. She came out of the line and went and tackled the magazine and the gun that this guy was holding. He had just emptied a magazine holding 31 rounds and was trying to insert another magazine of 31 rounds. She might have saved many, many lives. At that point, two gentlemen came and jumped on him and subdued him.
How old was she, Sheriff, or how old is she?
I don't know the answer. I just got the information on who she was, and I didn't see the age.
And I know that you said earlier she attempted to take the magazine to bring this shooter down, and she did get injured, or she got shot in the process. Do we know what her prognosis is?
Well, that information that we put out yesterday turned out to be erroneous. She was not, in fact, shot.
So she's okay?
She's okay. And we're all very grateful.
Have you spoken with her, Sheriff? Has the FBI spoken with her? I'm just trying to get a feel for her eyewitness account of how that went down.
All I can tell you is that our department has spoken to her, and that information will be available to the press tomorrow.
And you know what, Sheriff, as you were speaking, my apologies, my producer tells me in my ear that her name actually just was released, saying that it's Patricia Maisch, M-A-I-S-C-H, that she was the one running to the front of the line, grabbing the magazine and the firearm, that is the name of the person. Just want to run that by you and whether you can confirm that, because we just got that independently.
No, as a matter of fact, I can confirm that because I had just heard that myself.
You can. That is the name of the woman.
I can confirm that. It was that lady, yes.
Incredible. And again, since we now know her identity, can you share with me anything about her age or her background at all?
Yeah, I don't have any other information, but it is Mrs. Maisch.
Wonderful.
Or Miss Maisch.
An incredible story and an inspirational one. That's one piece of this tragedy we can feel good about. Sheriff, I want to ask you now about this suspect's mental health history, because you had suggested yesterday that there were, he had some petty anti-drug arrests, drug paraphernalia arrests, but then there was talk about this Jared Loughner having threatened to kill somebody, not Gabrielle Giffords, you said, but somebody. Can you share with us any details on that threat?
Well, Megan, if you were my lawyer, you would probably tell me not to answer that question, and I have been told by lawyers not to address that issue at the moment.
Okay. Was it in the distant past or was it recent?
Fairly recent.
Okay. And was it something that the Pima County Sheriff's Department looked into, or was that a federal matter?
It was not this department.
And do you know whether it was resolved to the satisfaction of the investigators? This guy isn't a threat, or this guy is a threat and they had an open file on him?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Megan.
Was it resolved? Was that investigation brought to a close? In other words, do you know whether a conclusion was reached as to whether he posed a danger or did not pose a danger?
Which individual are you talking about?
I'm talking about the suspect, Jared Loughner. Wasn't he the one who made the threats a couple of years? Well, who made the threats to kill?
He is the one, but I don't know if the law enforcement agencies were aware of it or not.
Okay. And I want to ask you also about the surveillance videos at the Safeway. You've released one picture of the man who initially was deemed a person of interest. Now you say he's no longer a person of interest. He's a taxi cab driver who just kind of went into the Safeway to get change. So we don't need to worry about him, is my understanding, anymore. But about the surveillance videos that are in and around the Safeway, how important are those going to be in this investigation, Sheriff?
Well, I'm not at liberty to talk about those now. We don't have any in our custody, but we're not at liberty to talk about the videos that may be in custody.
Okay, but before I let you go, you believe you have your man, and he's the only man you're looking at.
That is correct.
Okay. And he is in custody, federal custody right now. One final question, Sheriff. He's still not talking, right?
He is still not talking, and I think he's probably in Phoenix being arraigned because of the fact that a federal judge in Tucson was shot, and so all the judges have been recused.
That makes sense. Sheriff Dupnick, thank you so much for being here with us. We appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. Well, as the sheriff mentioned, the U.S. judicial system suffered a heavy blow yesterday. A federal judge, very well respected, one of the 6 victims gunned down in yesterday's rampage. In 3 minutes, Greg Jarrett on how this murder will echo for months to come. Plus, new reports from this tragedy as it unfolded. New 911 calls just coming in from the crime scene in Arizona. Stay with me.
Is anybody injured? Did you say Gabrielle Giffords was hit?
She's hit.
Okay.
I believe she's breathing. She was breathing. She still has the pulse, and we got 2 people, and we got 1 dead.